everybody. Welcome. We're here talking about what's happening in the world of AI in 4 different parts. And we do some quick introductions. I'm Ray Wong from Constellation Research, and I'm the moderator for today. We are live here in Davos at the HCLSoftware house on the promenade. And more importantly, it's a very, very important discussion. We've got a panel of 10 experts, and we're going to get to them very, very quickly. So, Jess, go ahead and introduce yourself. That's what we're doing.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jess Montgomery. I'm Director of AI at CAN at the University of Cambridge.
All right, go ahead.
I'm Stephanie from Brazil in the Global Shaper for the World Economic Forum.
And you're also a lawyer. Dan, go ahead.
I'm Dan Beck. I am the President and Chief Product Officer at SAP SuccessFactors.
Very cool. Sandy.
Hi, I'm Sandy. I'm COO at Unstoppable, author of book AI First, Human Always, and on the board of Altair AI.
Cool.
I'm Camila Clark, CEO, Clark Capital Advisors.
All right, KK.
Hi, Kalyan Kumar, KK, Chief Product Officer for HCLSoftware.
Diana Samara with Bachelor of Public Policy.
Hi, I'm Dasma Al-Bahairin, Managing Director for Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution Saudi Arabia, a World Economic Forum affiliate center.
All right.
Hi, Eric Pujol. I'm from Business France Agency, and I'm the former Trade Commissioner France to India.
Cool.
I'm Neil Lawrence, Professor of Machine Learning, University of Kenny Reed, Senior AI Fellow, Alan Shuri's.
All right, we're going to start with a conversation about the impact of technology on society. Who wants to go first? I'll jump in. Ready? Quick. All right. I don't want to take this one. I'm going to go to you. Jess, go ahead.
You see, we're seeing fantastic advances in AI technologies. Our capabilities are accelerating across a range of different technical domains. What we're not seeing is that translate into other benefit. So we're not really seeing meaningful real-world advances in the areas people have been telling us they care about for 10 years or more, in healthcare and education and public services. And that's really where we need to go in the next phase of AI development, connecting between technology and beneficial real-world impact.
So billions of dollars are being invested, yet we're not seeing a benefit yet. Is it coming soon? Do we have to wait?
Well, it seems at the moment we're going to have to wait a bit longer. The deck is still stacked against the people working on those challenges. They're technically complex. They require an integration of technical and domain expertise. They're often not well funded, and they have to deal with a constellation of issues and deployment for it. So we need further action to address those challenges.
That's a tough challenge. Eric, I'm going to go to you, but industries. What are industries that are going to be affected by this AI tech?
I think to answer the question, on the French point of view, what I've seen that most of the big French corporations are integrating AI now in their own business, and they're very much investing into that, France being one of the leaders in Europe. The government is also very interested to support all this change, not only for the corporate, but also for the society and for the citizens. I see that compared to India, that I know a little bit, maybe among the citizens, among the French one, which I know better, it's still a bit reluctant to go to AI solutions. But among companies and government, yes, we have very much already into that and supporting and investing a lot of money. The French government is putting 2.5 billion in the AI, attracting talents, R&D center. And we have seen major companies from the US investing in the Paris-Saclay in France, which is our Silicon Valley for Europe, south of Paris, attracting a lot of AI center for around the world. So corporation, yes, government, yes, still a little bit reluctant on the citizen.
I think what I've seen happen, Eric, is that everybody wants to do an AI project. So there are so many AI projects that are starting up instead of a business project. And I think, at the end of the day, we either run a business or we run a country or we run an entity. And so I think, as I've looked, I did research for my book, AI First, Human Always. And what I found was that those companies who had a business project that used AI were successful and had good ROI. But those who said, let's do an AI project and apply technology only or technology first and then try to find the business problem were the ones that lacked that true ROI and that true impact that they needed.
Let's talk public benefit. Go ahead.
So just the point, we have sometimes a lot of creativity inside MasterCard. I mean, customers trusted us with 145 billion transactions just last year. So that's a lot of data. And sometimes people come with an AI project, but what we're actually asking ourselves is this, do we really need to use AI for this? Yes or no? All right, yes. And if the answer is actually yes, or we can just solve this with a spreadsheet, right? if we're going to be using AI, then we are going for a two-tiered approach. First, there is a board, a diverse board, where we convene product, legal, privacy, and we take it from there. So I absolutely agree here with that.
It's an interesting point. When and where we insert a human is just as important, right? Instead of where we automate, we're going to have to think about decision trees and where those decision trees are in place. And one of the conversation points that we're going to ask is at some point, like, who do you sue when something goes wrong, right? When you need a human for that human touch, right? When you want to make sure that you have the right level of care, or you're actually trying to figure out how to find false positives or false negatives. And there's other ethical implications. Anyone want to jump in on those?
I could. Well, so as I was mentioning, we're always trying to balancing it. If you have ever tried to buy an airplane ticket and your card doesn't go through, it's because we may have detected something that is very different from what you usually.
Like being in 4 countries in the same day? That has happened to me.
So it's always about this balance between safety, security, and making particularly customers to make that transactions really swiftly. And for that, you need AI. And that's why we're looking into balancing these two, particularly with a principled approach. So we have this very easy 4 steps. So you own your data. It's yours. It's always yours. You should benefit from it. So life should be easier for you when you use your data. To protect it. So in this way, we're always trying to figure out, we want to go, because it's always fraud. We're always trying to minimize fraud, and that's how we're using it. But we are not, this is not, we didn't start doing this yesterday. It's been almost 15 years. I know AI is everybody's topic.
You have 15 years of data that's informing those decisions, and you hope it's in a fair and equitable way because it's not a human making that judgment.
Absolutely. And we built very robust processes to be here today.
So Ray, I want to jump. I think it's very important that you have to go back to defining the basics of AI. There is everything nowadays, the only conversation AI is equal to agentic, correct? Everything else is gone. I think.
There's some other types of AI, which we're about to say.
Which is where you can apply. And today what's happening is people are trying to solve stupid things with the large language model, correct? You try to ask it to do SQL queries, because you've seen some funny things happen because you're forcing things to happen. There's significant advancement in the disciplines in machine learning, correct? Unsupervised machine learning, supervised machine learning. There is a lot of metrics data doesn't need generative AI, correct? It needs a very different kind of pattern, complex event detection, things around that. So I would say computer vision has a different evolution, correct? Language understanding has a different evolution. NLP has a different evolution. So I would say that human in the loop is not about the operating the process. I would also say there is some level of sanity which is needed in people to select what to use for when, for where. Or it seems to be that just the new thing out there, everyone is going to build things on it without even understanding the context of it.
It's a great way, right? I mean, people are trying to use probabilistic models to solve deterministic problems. Yep. So 1 + 1 = 2, 98% of the time. That's not good enough, right? And lots of people are doing that at the moment, which is part of the challenge. Now, as we close out the technology section in this round, what we want to talk about is really how we can use this technology in a democratized and equitable way. When we're talking about the 4th industrial revolution, in that point, there was a lot of things about the benefits of making it more equitable. I'd like to turn to you to talk about more about what those could be. So,
To me?
yes.
Okay. So I'll give you an example. For instance, for our Saudi Arabia, one of the things that we're working on is a project focused on quantum economy. So how do we create a quantum economy? And we're actually piloting World Economic Forum's quantum economy, a blueprint. And so as part of that, and making sure that we are democratizing, technology and making sure that it's out there to everyone as much as possible, is that we're tackling various dimensions in this particular project. One is around education. So we need to bridge any education gaps, whether that's skilling or reskilling, or even introduce a particular courses or curricula within universities and maybe even prior, to university. Another aspect is how do we democratize access to this technology? So in terms of, for example, hardware, software, also looking at supply chains, how do we also even commercialize those are just a few things. Another thing that we're also going to be looking at, which is going to be important, is ethical and regulatory considerations, right? Because that's important because, again, you want to get your technology out there to as many people as possible and making sure that you bridge the digital divide as much as possible. So those are just a few things. That's one example. Another example that I can also cite is in relation to something we're also doing at the center. And this is about how do we enable SMEs to digitally transform? So we've designed a peer-to-peer virtual platform that brings together SMEs, different sectors, focusing on, different areas, giving them access to resources, training, experts, because the regulators are also on the platform, technology providers, technology solutions. And it's also a very secure environment where they can test out and refine and adopt their ideas. So again, that's another way of making sure that we not only create awareness, but also give opportunity to everybody to utilize a very safe space.
It makes a lot of sense, Dr. Boswell. I think that's a really important piece, right, as we're trying to look at the equity. Now, if we talk about humans in AI, one of the big shifts really is how does it augment our ability to actually look at creativity or change things along the way? Dan, what's changing in the world of HR?
It's such an exciting time. This idea of AI meets HR workflows. And I was in a session earlier today and someone said, this is the year where AI joins the org chart.
AI joins the org chart. The agent joins the org chart? Or?
It's just kind of a provocative thought that, that many of your tasks will be meaningfully automated with an agent, but also just, the pace and the speed of it. And I think some of the better questions I'm seeing out there is how you're decomposing work to say, well, what actually should be going to AI and what should, back to the human in the loop, what is your unique humanity going to bring out? And so I just think it's a fascinating time, and we're just seeing it across the board.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And Neil, what skills are people actually needing to be able to be successful in AI?
It's a good question. And I think the challenge we face is, like so many other technology revolutions, there's this balance between what we expect to happen in the near term, which will be less than everyone's predicting, and what will happen in the long term, which will be much more. And I think when we look at AI, we have to recognize that it's an utter transformation of what I think of as the information topography. And it comes at a critical time. If we go back to control of information at the time of the invention of writing, information was controlled by scribes, people who could read and write, people who did accounts or law and eventually gained responsibilities alongside the power. And if we look at what's happened in the age of digitization, those people have been disempowered by software and digital solutions. So the power has shifted away from people that can read and write towards people who can produce software. And the control of information flow has shifted into software systems. But the responsibilities that were there with the scribes have not shifted. And this is causing severe problems in society. Problems where the power is not devolving, as Jess was saying earlier, into the critical areas we care about in society, whether that's education, healthcare, welfare, or just basic opportunities for people to do jobs that they would like to do. This technology, it's not artificial general intelligence. Let's remember, general intelligence is a eugenic term, and the idea that we can rank intelligence is absurd. Intelligence is a diverse thing that sits in all of us in different ways. But what it provides is the possibility that each and every one of us can talk to a machine. Each and every one of us can say to the machine, I want the interface to look like this. Could you please do that? It offers the potential to us all back in charge. So, coming back to the early point, in the short term, I think things will change less than people expect because society has certain systems and certain expectations around the way things are done, and those are difficult to change overnight. That's the most challenging problem, as Jess was saying earlier. But in the long term, it's going to be utterly transformational. But in terms of returning power to us.
But you raise a great point. Should the systems be designed for the system or designed for the individual? Or what's the give-get to create a mindful system?
Up until now, there's been no choice. Right. Because up until digital technology have been too complex for individuals to interface with. So, great companies like HCLSoftware are there to help us with that. But you can't have a bespoke solution for everyone. So if you've got a nurse in a ward who would like her paper or his paperwork to be done for them so that they can spend more time with patients, the ideal software solution does not exist. And the size of that market for that nurse does not exist. So that nurse has to adapt to the software. The software does not adapt to the nurse. And the same applies to teachers doing their lesson planning, or anyone we care about in society who would prefer to spend time communicating with humans, but has to spend time communicating software, which is not designed for them. Now, if you look at a shift where that market is present and saying, I'd like it to be like this, and not only like that, I can create it as a bespoke creator. I can steer the software to be like that. That flips the whole equation. And suddenly we can design solutions for people. And we haven't been able to do that for the last 20 years, which is why the digital world is so dysfunctional.
That's an interesting point on the digital divide. You want to jump in?
I was just going to say, I think that's where we're headed, are these individual solutions. So if you look today, even if you're not a coder, you can use some of the self-coding systems. So I just look on my team, and my team wanted an application. Of course, for me to hire a programmer to go deliver that application for one person is too expensive. So what he did was he actually did self-coding and used AI to create a program for him to scrape different financial data that he needed. He's not a coder, he's not a programmer, but he was able to do that. I have another employee who's on marketing who wanted to scrape social media data. Again, there's no program for her for precisely what she wanted to do. There was one program she wanted that was like $10,000 a month, which for a startup, we couldn't afford that. So she also took AI and wrote something just for her. Is it perfect? No. Is it production ready? No. But again, they shaped the program because of AI and the self-coding capability to the tasks that they needed to make them more productive for their specific tasks.
So Stephanie, we're going to go to you from a generational point of view as a WEF global shaper. What does AI look like to you? Is it just easy to pick up, something to use from your generation, or is there a lot of training that's required?
I think it's a very interesting tool that we can use to go further in our job and to be more creative. AI is a great source of creativity and insights for us to think differently about things. And it has to be a transformational tool. We have to think about the digital revolution in terms of affordability, security, efficiency. And it's really important that no one is left behind. So with governments and the private sector, they need to work together to improve infrastructure, to make sure that everyone has access. And we also need security, People need to trust the AI and the digital revolution that it's happening.
Let's go to security. What's required? Or you need to actually trust security, Jess. Trust the AI, trust the system, trust the data in there.
Well, we shouldn't be trusting the system.
What? Just trusting the system blindly. Is that okay?
The point isn't that we trust the system. The point is that the system is trustworthy. That means a combination of honesty, competence, reliability, things that the philosopher Honora O'Neill has been talking about for decades in her work. And we can draw from that in thinking about how we think about and design these socio-technical systems, where people have the skills to interact with AI. We have the basic technical capabilities that are giving us confidence in how our data is being managed. And the interface between the two and between the two and policy is such that we have a wider, well-governed environment. But that's a really complex socio-technical challenge that requires multiple levers to address, including skills, policy, standards, and so on, where if we don't make rapid progress, we're at risk of really putting ourselves at risk of encountering these wider security issues.
AI and check could be crazy. I don't know. Okay, what did you say?
Last Camilo.
Yeah, Camila, go ahead.
Well, I think the key thing is there's so much fear out there about AI. Is it going to take jobs? Is it going to replace you? And when you think about it, there was a study that was recently done about radiologists. So basically, with AI, you can get to that exact, point without needing a radiologist. So people thought that radiologists as a whole, they would start falling off a cliff because you would just replace them. And actually, they found out that the radiology hiring has actually gone up. Because why do you think? Why do you think that would be the case?
Because now they can find more
Possibly.
But there's more diagnostic tests enabled by technology as well. So it's like Xerox, the Pake's office. It never goes up way before it goes down.
And you have to find the nuances of what the AI is telling you. So the conclusion is AI is not going to replace humans. AI is going to replace humans that don't know how to use AI. So in a way, it's a great multiplier. But I think to summarize what I'm trying to say, even though AI can be scary and it needs to be checked, and there's more and more of these agencies that are looking at, having a regulatory framework to make sure it's not unchecked, because there's clearly biases in the large language models that feed the information that AI takes. I think in the end, it's very helpful. It's helpful for humanity as long as it's regulated well enough.
No, it's a great point. And we're also looking at where AI plays a role for DEI efforts, inclusion. One of the most interesting conversation points, I was at a company yesterday, and they basically made two interesting points to 10,000 workers. They said, everybody here is going to be AI enabled. It's the difference between success or not. Everyone here is going to be AI enabled. The tools are in front of you for you to use. And what we do with equity inclusion with AI is the fact that we're going to actually be able to use that to actually make sure that we catch all the human biases before we actually launch something, so that that's available for you to be able to see and use and test before it goes out the door. So it's pretty interesting to see that kind of conversation out there. Are you or anyone here seeing any other uses that we're seeing for AI and in the world of DEI?
So one of the program we're mainly here to talk about is the International Cooperation Network, or the Computation AI Network, which is something we launched at last year's WEF, which has been about trying to address exactly this problem that Jess mentioned, that the benefits of AI being unevenly distributed and mostly to those areas with the most cash, which doesn't unfortunately align with the areas of most need. So what that network has done is worked with an organization, Pan-African Network, of very capable people called Data Science Africa. And they've managed to deploy the latest GraphCast technology from DeepMind, which is neural network weather forecasting, in combination with rain gauge sensors across Kenya, which don't reach the world standard for being integrated in normal forecasting networks because they're not so easily monitored. But they fix those up with some machine learning algorithms. They've integrated it with the GraphCast algorithms and therefore have some of the most accurate weather forecasts in the world that can be used to support Kenyan farmers in dealing with changes coming with the rains to do with climate, where the reliability of the rainfall, which is traditionally relied on, is failing, causing crops to fail. One of the things I love about that is that the entire AI expertise was people on the ground in Kenya. And the compute was provided by the Swiss Alps supercomputer in Nagano. But rather than going into Kenya and telling them what they needed to do, what Thomas Schultz, who leads that facility, did is he went there and listened to people on the ground who have the expertise already, just needed a bit of support on the compute. And that's a project that, yes, not yet deployed to farmers, that's the last mile and the very important mile, but has shown success within a very short 9-month period. And being able to scale that with the same type of capability across the world, this seems an absolute critical move.
Wow. That's actually some very useful things in terms of AI actually in front of the field for people can use it, especially in areas that are actually going to get the benefit from AI. One of the issues with AI, too, is the fact that the winners are going to be the ones that have cheap energy, that have access to lots of chips, and the ability to aggregate data. And that's going to be the differential between different countries. What do you suggest, or if anybody want to jump in on the conversation about that's energy usage with data centers, and of course, the data usage and data privacy that's being held? Anybody want to take that one? Okay.
Something, the two aspects, I think the most important thing around anything to do with AI is to get your data discipline right. I think Neil pointed a while back. Systems were built for the system masters, the masters of the system, to serve the people who are controlling things, not people who are consuming things. It was always, it even started in the ERP world, correct? Decided to control, finance, everything was, what's happening is that some of the newer ways, if you're really talking about HR or tech, you are inverting and putting the employee in the center or the workforce in the center. And the reason this has happened is data was always an afterthought when applications were built. Oh, you needed something, build an application, put a process, or you need a data mart, shout it. And that's how it's happened. So what's missing, the two fundamental things have been missing, and which if you go and study computer science, there's a lot of talk about metadata. They say the definition of data, which tells what the data is. And today, the biggest challenge in machine learning and also scaling this thing is tagging and classifying the input data sets. And it's a big thing because you have each one of the companies have tons of data stored in all the various different systems. And how do you basically organize understanding the data as a significant data prep for AI is the simple, most important thing. From a privacy standpoint, I think today the way it's been on privacy is you have to let go of a bit of privacy for convenience. It's always been that, okay, I'm willing to share this data, and in return of that, I'll get certain convenience. I would say that's where I think guardrails have to be put in by governments or some agencies, because that's the only way you can regulate into this. I was in a very interesting chat with Sir Tim Berners-Lee yesterday. About the solid protocol, and he was like, he's in a completely different zone. He's saying, looks like I built the www, thinks that it's not doing what it's supposed to do. It's sharing too much information. I need to think of something where I can start to give people choice to choose how they want to distribute data. I think that's where the world has to go, that you as an individual have to start to define how you want to share private data. That's
a very big follow-up on that, because I think you're so right. So I spent 3 years in Amazon. I went to Amazon to learn how these things are being done in practice and expected to kind of see that data-first architecture. But the way we built service-oriented architectures has meant that it's an afterthought, the data. And even in Amazon, which is better at this than any other company, it was an afterthought. And this leaves you in a problem that you have this ecosystem of interconnected components, but you don't have the data map of what's flowing. And when the vice president is asking, why are we low in stock in this area, unless he's asked that or she's asked that question the month before, you can't answer that question for another 9 months till you've gone through your software and unpick the data. So one of the things that my research has focused on since then is shifting from what we think of as service-oriented architectures to data-oriented architectures. And we're seeing a lot of signs of businesses starting to understand that. But the pressure is still there to deploy quickly. And unfortunately, the challenge is to deploy quickly, you're often undermining your ability to monitor the data flow and build a more customer-focused system. But the truth is, unless businesses understand how to do this and deploy like this, they're going to be disrupted by the businesses that do. We'll see every business around today will seem like a dinosaur compared to the more consumer-facing and focused businesses that are growing right now and do everything we said earlier about putting, and KK was just saying, about putting the employee or the customer right at the heart of these systems.
And that's a great point, right? What KK was saying earlier, we've gone from controlling to consenting to conscientious, right, in terms of how the systems work. And what you're talking about as well is that notion where the data, the business logic, and the experience all need to be abstracted so that we can actually use it. So, and it's not just service-oriented or data-oriented architecture, but that abstraction layer is happening right now to be able to move over the top so that we can actually build business logic on top and make decisions, right?
And not just to make decisions, but inform the vice presidents what's going on, the directors, the software engineers, the CEO, and regulators. Because regulators are coming in and saying, can you show that you didn't make that decision on the basis of some kind of racial criteria you've got in your system? And very often the answer is, no, I can't, because I don't know how everything's stuck together. Wow.
But I also think that from a consumer, if you go back to KK's point about data, one of the things that I think we're going to see happen is the convergence of blockchain and artificial intelligence. So people may not agree with that, but blockchain enables a person who gives data for a reason. It ensures that it is used for that reason. There's a smart contract in place, and it can ensure that the data is being used in the way it was intended to be used. I think this is going to be a really crucial point as we move forward and how the data is being used. So, for example, there is an application, an AI healthcare application, that's 77% accurate in predicting liver disease through a simple blood test. But what they found is that all the people who anonymize that data happen to be men. And so it's 77% accurate in men, in white men, by the way, but it's only 12% accurate for women, and it's only 2% accurate from anybody of color. And so what ended up happening is they wanted to get more data for women, so they were asking for their data, and then the data was given to improve the accuracy. However, it then got used in multiple different ways. Had that been done on the blockchain, then you could see how it was being used. I intended the data to be used to help this liver application, but it was actually used to market to me and to do other things as well.
And maybe just to answer your question about energy, I think energy issue is key now, and we have seen a lot, as I said, project coming to front those last months. The key issue is the capacity of the power utilities to give the power to the data centers in a very short time, and not many countries can do that. And your electricity has to be green. It's like a EV. If you buy electrical car and you say, okay, I will save the planet because I'm buying electrical car, but where the electricity is coming from? From a nuclear power plant, from a coal power plant. So those big data centers, they need huge electricity, and this electricity has to be provided now. And I've heard that some country cannot plug a new power data center within 6 or 7 years. So, and they need the electricity now. It's for next month. And the electricity has to be green. Not many countries have green electricity. And the consumer, while using AI instead of the Google search or whatever, they have to know how much electricity they are using once they are questioning to AI for very simple questions. So I think that everyone has to understand that AI is a revolution, yes, but the consumption of electricity is huge. And the other point that we see in investment projects, especially in Europe, is the acceptance by the citizen to have a data center next to your house. The municipality, the mayor, and it's most of the time, they didn't want the big warehouse of Amazon going next to their house. Now they're welcoming data center. And data center is not creating jobs.
No, there are no humans at the data center.
So no, there are many investors want to build data center. When you looked for the possibility to receive those data centers, for example, around big cities in the world, in the villages, where you have the lands and the field, the acceptance by the people is very, very low.
Yeah, we're going to see that all across the board with data centers in space. Dan, go ahead.
I just want to build on what KK and Neil were talking about. Like one of the things I'm seeing with AI, at least as it pertains to HR tech, is you can hyper personalize the solution around the worker, and it requires data. But this idea that you can have a talent journey totally dedicated to your skills, your learning, your interests, and that's just something really compelling that you're able to roll out now, powered by AI.
No, we're going to see more of that.
I'd like to add upon that because we're also looking into the future of commerce, and we're really thinking that hyper personalization is going to be a thing, but also connecting it with the green economy. So we're looking into building products that will connect these two. So we will personalize some recommendations, but also allow you to learn the carbon footprint of that choice. So it's again about the consumer, but building in these two. And also thinking about the solutions and how we're bridging these two. 9% of the MSMEs out there will be extremely vulnerable when they become digital. And we are extremely committed into bridging that gap. So having this knowledge in-house, we have a series of programs, both for MSMEs that have never been online and are starting to sell, but also for fintechs. So we connect them. We have different programs that will allow them to exchange how they're dealing with this, because yes, they're going to have data from many customers, and we can share both of our knowledge and some of our data in order to improve that experience while being very secure.
Plus, you also have the cities program that you have as well. It provides that data set.
Correct.
So as you well. Come in.
And this personalization keeps happening. It's very interesting how the U.S. versus Europe, for example, look at the use of data in such a different way. GDPR, et cetera, it's holy in Europe. Whereas in the U.S., people give their data away pretty easily. You're like, it's okay because it's convenient. I get something for it. But there's a very different perspective depending on where in the world you are and the history behind how you feel the data could be used or misused. The U.S. to some extent is a little bit more relaxed about their data being used. I don't know if you've seen.
Just a point. Something which we learned from the work which we've been doing with and I think a benchmark is UP in India, the DPI in India, the Digital Public Infrastructure. What India has done, extremely interesting. I was chatting with the GovTech leader for Deutschland, Germany. And they're trying to take some idea because that whole concept of UID and UPI and ONDC, whatever. But what they've done is basically they've enabled the basic data, and there is this very interesting thing called the DigiLocker, correct? Which is basically you can choose your documents and you can point and say who can see access to what and for what period of time. It's all the government enabling. So it's like this government of the people, by the people, for the people. So actually the digital is becoming for. So some of these things are the enterprises doing that. And this thing is that if some neutral body, like the guardrails kind of a body which can really enable digital public infrastructure, then a lot of this data, citizen data issues, governments could take ownership or leave with at least some trust which will be built there if we still, finally, people do trust in nation states to election. Yeah, there's a different conversation that, whether this is individuals, the nation state, that's completely different dialogue. But the fact is that DPI could be a right way to enable some of these things.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot. We're seeing the compression of these types of things that are what we call exponential efficiency, right? So just take payments, right? We've done for $25 a wire to $1.50 an ACH transaction. To how much is it for UPI in India? $0. That's
for the consumers, yeah, for
consumer,
yeah.
Bank to bank, right? But that's a public good infrastructure that you're going to see more and more come in. Let's talk a little bit quickly about investments. What are hot areas? Camille, I'll go to you. Where you see AI investments happening. I'm going to go down the line to see what you guys are seeing, just to get a feel from everybody in the group. I'll start with Camille.
I think robotics and humanoids. I think having, just that extra step where AI actually is a human and they learn so easily to do things that we can do. I think that's something that's really taking off, and I think that space is pretty interesting.
Hey, can we go to you? You just talked about the HCL 2025 tech trends. Some interesting ones there where you're seeing investments in AI.
So I would say one of the things which we are doing as HCL is, and what we see in the industry, we're going to invest a lot on data. Technologies in data fabric, data mesh, metadata management, data because if we solve that piece of the problem and we can contribute to that, a lot of enough innovation will happen around that. The second, I'm seeing a very interesting fish, and could be absolutely interesting, and we were having a chat with Zach Kass yesterday when he was... You see what DeepSeek has done with taking LLMs to run on CPUs. And it's a necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah, if you can't get access to GPUs.
So beyond, I think the concept of small language models, there's enough computational power that you have in the PC. I think take inspiration from Napster, what it did for not the illegal downloading of the music, but the technology they used around peer-to-peer to be able to use that. I think there's some absolutely innovative things which can happen. Look at the compute power we all have in this.
Well, that's not being fully utilized. Yes.
The new Mac M4s have so much compute power, you'd be surprised. And we use like a slice of that. So I think...
we did that too with Ace too.
Yeah, we have the best computer of 0.6 watts, correct? On an X. So I think there's an opportunity around investments there, but I think valuation-driven investment versus value, I think as that happens, some sense will prevail.
I'm going to Jess. What's hot? What do you see innovations in AI?
So over the last 3 years in Cambridge, we've trained over 1,000 researchers from over 50 departments in the use of AI for science, defining science broadly in terms of both physical, chemical, biological science and arts and humanities. And there we're seeing a step change as we have these more accessible user interfaces in how easily people feel that they could interact with AI as part of their science. But the key there is not necessarily the technical capability, it's the people and the environment that makes these AI tools accessible to those people so that they can deploy AI in their science.
Very cool. We're changing the access points, making people. Go ahead. Stephanie.
I think it's very important that we are mindful when investing in AI, because we have to know where and for what we are using our money. And technology can be a transformational tool. And at the same time as the energy demand increases because of technology also solves a lot of energy efficiency problems. So if we think about technology as an integrated tool for urban planning and the new economy we're trying to build, I think it's going to be very positive for society.
Your call stands.
I mean, I think it comes back to your exponential efficiency point, which I love quite a bit. But I think this idea, the way you build business applications can fundamentally change. And one thing I'm particularly excited about is just unleashing the value of your business data. So kind of AI meets business data.
So AI meets business data, creates new opportunities. All right, Sandy?
I think it's going to be on humans and what makes us more human. I think this is going to become even bigger as we go forward. So I think next year at Davos, we'll be talking about the human insertion points. I think we'll be talking about what's our unique value. I sat through Dario, he's the CEO of Anthropic's presentation. It was the first time that I had heard a tech CEO talk about humans and what's going to happen with humans, purpose and value. So that's what I think is going to happen. I think that's where we'll be next year.
Yeah, we'll be redefining purpose and value.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the things that we thought we were supposed to do that gave value will go away. Diana?
For us, it's extremely important to keep investing in safe and secure. We are one of the most attacked companies, as you imagine. Being an employee, if you fail that phishing test, after a while, you're up. Jokes apart. We're also investing in new ideas, in things that are not created within our own companies. So we have a program called StartPath, more than 50 countries having already participating. For us, it's always about how do we use what we have today to look into the future, but solving always for both businesses and individuals at the same time.
God. I'm just going to add something to that. I'm seeing a lot of my clients, corporates, building incubators in-house. And you're seeing a lot of that, it's happening in-house in a way that it didn't about 10 or 15 years ago. So,
and by the way, when you happen there, they connect into each other and they learn from each other. And we're seeing such exponential value there.
Wonderful. Dr. Basil?
So in the kingdom, I'll talk about the kingdom, we're seeing AI being used, across the board, across various industries and sectors, from healthcare to energy to finance. And what we've been doing in terms of the innovation, ecosystem is we have many startups that are operating in various accelerators and incubators that we have. One of the kind of popular ones is called the Garage, where we have startups that come from over 50 different countries, focusing on different industry sectors, and they have access to the national lab because they're located within a national lab of the science technology part, which is called CACS. And so they have access to infrastructure, because infrastructure can be an impediment, right, to startups. And so they have access to that would help them on their ventures, and they also have access to researchers, because talent that could also be another impediment that would be needed. And they also have access to the market, which is also another impediment, right? That's important for startups. Go ahead, you wanted to say something?
I was going to say, like the KSA, I think what happened was very important was that there was the Arabic language model that made that able to.
Yes, which is being developed, but I'm talking kind of more. Talking more generically, much more broader. But we have seen, even in healthcare, we've been utilizing artificial intelligence in various ways, whether it's through our virtual hospital, Saha Virtual Hospital, which is the largest virtual hospital in the Middle East. We've also been using it in an application called Sahati, which is basically your medical file. Exactly. We've also been using artificial intelligence in healthcare operations for appointment scheduling, for example, or looking at OR utilization rates and what have you, because the efficiency is being created. And we're also seeing it in drug discovery, across the world. So I think, for us, artificial intelligence is going to play a key role, is going to be very important for us, and we're investing heavily in that area. But at the same time, it's important not to lose sight that the entire ecosystem that one has to build or put together, whether it's looking at your talent pool and making sure that you have the right number of talent and the right sort of talent, and that they're also trained in the right areas, and that you also have an enabling environment. So I think one of the things that's important to balance when we're talking about technologies is how do you make sure that your regulations are not stifling, and at the same time they're enabling innovation. And that's not an easy thing, I think, to put in place, but it is equally important. And how do you also make sure that you have all of the different dimensions that are needed for you to become a source, a magnet where you're able to attract talent and attract businesses, because you have other enabling elements within that ecosystem as well. So I look at this from a very holistic lens and not just kind of looking at, okay, we're just going to be using artificial intelligence to help us in these different areas. That's great. But what else do we need to have in place to make it very viable?
All right. Oh, thank you for sharing that. So you got a broader perspective in terms of the trend line before those innovations are going to happen. Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, as I said, investment is increasing a lot, especially in France, which I know quite well. And I agree that there are some part of the world that could attract a little bit more with what is happening in the US. Which continent do you have between the US and China? It's Europe in the mix. It's India and it's Middle East. And as you spoke about a hub in Saudi Arabia, we also believe we could be, and we are already, Paris is already a hub. AI, that's why we attract also those mega centers for AI.
Is it a conference next week in Paris?
Yes, I will talk about this as well. But I mean, the position in that war that we have seen, and that would be more accurate those days, I think India has already started that positioning towards China. I was in India in 2020 when you stopped TikTok and you stopped many Chinese applications, and we know why. So what is happening now in the US as well is very interesting, but I think it's a chance, as we say, to make Europe great again. And to be like in the right location to receive those investment, and also because of legal protection. France has a very strong, and Europe legal data protection that could be also interesting for some investors to be in a neutral country because the data protection is strong. So I think that I'm quite confident there is a massive investment opportunities coming, but the location will be the key point. And I think that you as Indian company, Saudi Arabia, and I was yesterday with Bahrain, Minister of Finance and Economy, who was also promoting Bahrain for that neutrality and drop. Yeah.
No, we're definitely going to see that kind of that trend.
Global trend. There's globalization and hyper-localization. So it's like...
Oh, that's it. So, all right, Neil, round it out for us.
Yeah, no, that's good. I have two thoughts building on what Dan and Nat. I just want to say that, first of all, the direct answer on the investment, I think Dan is totally right. What's this revolution in information technology going to trigger, first of all? Immense cybersecurity risk. We're already in an appalling position with quality of deployed software, and that's supposedly software deployed by people who know what they're doing. Now, as Sandy was saying earlier, this is providing the opportunity for everyone to have a go. Unfortunately, not everyone's having a go at securing the systems and building the underlying systems. So UK National Cybersecurity Centre budget each year is $2 billion. A whole science budget is $7 billion, Maureen. So look at those ratios. Now, in 10 years' time, I can easily predict, 5 years' time, I'd say it's going to be 20 billion at the rate we're going, because the type of people who even understand the cybersecurity risks and how to deploy and defend them is a very small group. Now, we can absolutely change that, but unfortunately, it's not the things we hear. Everyone's going on about agentic AI, which definitely have merits, and one of those merits is new fronts for cyber attack on organizations. So 100% agree with Diana. But then also, there's sort of things, so
They like increasing our attack surfaces, but keep going, yes.
yes, it's a merit for those who want to do harm. But then I think, as Basma was saying a bit about I think the biggest challenge we face is the quality of the demand in a very real sense. So there's this separation between what we're talking about in terms of macroeconomic investments, 500 billion in the US, whatever everyone's saying here, and where those investments are realizing in the economy in terms of the microeconomic demand. It's a separation unlike we've ever seen before. So people will spray this money around, and in 10 years' time, people will be even angrier because they've not seen any more opportunities in their lives or any of the things they care about get better. In fact, we've seen them uniformly across the world get worse if we go for health and education and these sort of opportunities. So that means an extinction of hope for the middle classes. And that is why they're turning to the extremes in terms of who they're voting for. So we need to play cleverly through the center, which means we need to rethink how we are building on the human capital we have in our countries. And Basma was talking about this in the Saudi kingdom. But I think it's even more urgent for those countries that have existing human capital, that we have to understand that we need to be agile and ready in terms of how we re-educate them and support them in adapting these new technologies. Because in this sense, human attention is the one thing that we know is not going to suddenly increase in availability. Human attention is the gold, the scarce resource in the information economy. And AI is kind of like philosopher's stone. It can turn base metals like silicon or electrical into things that we used to do with human attention. And what that drives is massive inflation on human capital. So unless you have inflation-proof your human capital, and the only way to do that is to be listening carefully to problems they're experiencing and working closely with them to educate them to adopt these new technologies, and doing that in the difficult-to-reach areas of economies. So we're talking ex-industrial areas, areas which I think of as brownfield economy. In Germany, that would be very successful industrial areas today, but ones which we know are going to be suffering from change. Unless we're addressing those, then these investments are not going to end up going to the right places, supporting the right kind of economic development. And we can look forward to far more turmoil in the political satisfaction of our populations across the world.
No, it's a very quiet.
I just add something, just to your point. I think the education in AI need to start much earlier. It's not about upskilling and reskilling people that we have already, working or even teaching AI in universities. It needs to start much earlier, so, right? But not only it.
And go on much later.
Go on much later, so it's a continuous.
60 years like that, by educate.
But it's not only about the technicalities of AI, but we also need to infuse the regulatory aspects and the cybersecurity aspects as well. So all of the ethical aspects, so people have that grasping and understanding of other elements that are also important that they need to know.
On top of that, we also need to reform what we think of as education. It's not like there's a central group of people who knows and then a bunch of people who are going to learn. No one knows. And actually what you need is a conversation between those people who are trying to deploy and those people who think they know to sort of change the understanding, and a shared understanding needs to emerge. So it needs to be much more peer-to-peer and much more, and this is in some sense, it means it's easier to scale because it means we can work with people at the coalface, empower their confidence, and then say, you are now the teacher. So we don't just teach them to do, we teach them to teach. And that's how we share.
And it's also bringing the private sector into this as well. So fostering collaboration, public-private collaboration, I think is a way to be fundamental.
I'll leave you guys with one thought, right? So if all the insights are sitting inside these AI systems, and AI systems have been pretty much closed, centralized, right, very expensive, and only few players, where will human knowledge go in the future? Right? This is going to be a very interesting point. When we looked at the internet age, it was different. It was open, it was decentralized, there were lots of players, and things were coming down in cost. And so we created the inverted problem, which is we've created centralized scarcity when what we want is decentralized abundance. To break that mold, one of the things that you can do is actually start thinking about insights the way we think about patent, trademarks, and copyright. And an insight inside a language model might be good for 10 milliseconds, might be good for 10 seconds, might be good for 10 days, might even be good for 10 years, right? And you'll see new types of insights being put back into the public markets depending on how people build those types of regulation. I'll leave you with that. Now, on a happy note, since we've gone down the path of pessimism because we ended up somewhere on that piece, but on a happy note, I want to know what you're looking forward to in next year's Davos. So go ahead. Jess, you get 3 seconds, no long answers.
Technology is not a unique or overwhelming force. It's shaped by people, of policy and institutions. And if we can empower people and institutions to respond, we'll be able to create an alternative narrative for these technologies.
So we're going to get a new narrative. Go ahead.
I think I'd like to see good concrete results.
Okay, real ROI. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm with the real ROI.
Real ROI.
Sorry, adoption, real ROI.
And real adoption. Go ahead.
I'd love to see one big healthcare challenge eradicated because of the help of AI.
We have an X Prize for AI. Go ahead, Camilla.
I would say addressing the digital divide and not leaving those that are further behind on the AI curve.
So making sure the AI divide doesn't get worse because people don't have access to energy, data, or the networks and expertise. Go ahead.
Focus on value, not valuation.
Value, not valuation. Again, hold that one. Keep going.
Human-centered, not technology-centered.
Human-centered. Okay.
Addressing the digital divide.
Okay, very cool.
I would say human-centered as well. Human-centered and maybe action. That's the name of the next summit in a few days, AI Action Summit. And it could be all about human, about research, about culture as well. AI and culture, and our government can also regulate all that. It's a co-chair summit between the French president and the Prime Minister of India, where many countries will participate.
Viva Tech for AI. Go. Has to be positive, Neil.
We'll know when AI is working when we stop talking about it. That will be next year.
Just like that. There we go. All right, fine. There we have it. We're going to thank everyone here. Jess, Stephanie, Dan, Sandy, Camilla, KK, Diana, Rosalind, Eric, and Neil. Thank you very much.